Okay.
Okay, we are picking up with verse 18 of chapter 44. Verse 18, if you have Eitz Chaim on page 174. 170.
174.
Yes. 274. Sorry. 274. Okay, again, it's verse 18, chapter 44. Uh, we begin in the middle of a chapter.
Gash?
Yeah, question?
Is it
Yes.
Vayigash?
Uh, wow, thank you. No,
Yeah, that doesn't.
I am completely off. I opened my book. I had a bookmark, but that wasn't it. Okay. Chapter, it is page 293, 293, beginning with verse 28. It is the beginning of a new parsha, the last in the book of Genesis, uh, which is Vayehi. It is not the beginning of a chapter, but the beginning of the parsha. So first of all, Vayehi, which is the first word of the parsha,
Okay.
means Vayehi Yaakov, Jacob lived. And in general, when we start with something like he lived, we're being signaled actually that the end is coming and he's going to die.
Hmm.
But like Chaye Sarah, the name of another portion, the life of Sarah was 127 years. Right? So we know this is how it's going to end. So he
And
lived 17 years in the land of Egypt, and the span of Jacob's life came to 147. So 17 years is significant. First of all, it's a lot longer than you might have thought he would live when he first met Pharaoh, and he said, "My years are few, much less than the years of my father." You had this sense that he felt his end was imminent, but he lived 17 more years. Moreover, Joseph was 17 years old when he left for Egypt. And so there's a kind of parallel. Joseph is with Jacob for 17 years before he departs, and then Jacob is with Joseph for the last 17 years. So when the time approached to die, not clear what that means, but he's feeling old and weak, I would say. In a minute, we'll see that he will also become sick. But when the time approaches for Israel to die, that is Jacob, he summons Joseph and he says to him, "Do me this favor, place your hand under my thigh as a pledge of your steadfast loyalty. Do not bury me in Egypt." So Jacob is asking Joseph to swear an oath. This is reminiscent, of course, of the oath that Abraham has his servant swear when he sends him off to find a wife for Isaac. And so that process, we can see it's coming to its fruition here with a final oath. Uh, and well, actually, two, as you'll see, one here and one at the end. But he says to him, "Don't bury me in Egypt. This is not where I belong. Right? I've been here with you, but I need to return to the land that God gave to my grandfather and to the people of Israel in general." And so he's asking him to swear, and he says, "When I lie down with my fathers, take me from Egypt and bury me in their burial place. So take my body home to our ancestral burial place." And he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him. And then Israel bows to Joseph, a bow perhaps of acknowledgement. And so Joseph has now taken an oath, and one wonders why an oath was necessary. Why isn't there simply a conversation in which he says, "I'm going to die soon, take me home"? But I think the answer is that Joseph is going to have to present this to Pharaoh. And when he does, by saying that his father made him swear an oath, it's a much stronger claim. Because we're going to see that Pharaoh is not exactly anxious for Joseph to leave Egypt. At any rate, he swears. And now, sometime later, Joseph was told his father is ill. So the end is coming, and he takes with him his two sons, Menasha and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, your son Joseph has come to see you, he summons his strength and he sits up. A very sort of specific image here of using the last of his strength, really, to greet his son. Notice the order, Menasha and Ephraim. I'm pointing it out. It makes sense. Menasha is the firstborn, the eldest. So when Joseph takes them, in Joseph's mind, he's taking Menasha and Ephraim in that order. We're going to see, though, that that doesn't last. And now Jacob says to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me in Luz. Luz, remember, is another name, the more ancient name for Beit El. Right? This was the scene where God appeared to Jacob and he blessed me. Right? This is where he had that dream of the ladder going to heaven, the angels up and down, and said to me, I will make you fertile and numerous, making of you a community of peoples. Kahal Amim, the Kahal is a large assembly of people. And I will assign this land, that is the land that's there in land of Israel, for your offspring to come as an everlasting, eternal possession. Now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, shall be mine. Ephraim and Menasha shall be mine, no less than Reuben and Shimon. So, what does he mean by this? He's formally adopting them. So that, yes, they're his grandchildren, but he will treat them as though they are his children. And that means that they will have an equal inheritance with his sons. So this is it's a formal, it's a legal sort of setup. And then I'm going to leave out the parentheses. And notice that when he says it, two things. He switches the order, right? He says not Menashe and Ephraim, but Ephraim and Menashe. He names them, and then he says, but he names them in that order, as we'll see, it's significant. And then he says they'll be like Reuven and Shimon. So Reuven and Shimon, of course, were the first two children that were born to Jacob. Reuven, the firstborn, Shimon thereafter. And so by saying that, he's saying they will be as important. And remember that this whole idea of the firstborn and so on, that the progeny who were born earlier have their father's strength in greater abundance. He said they'll be like their eldest, like your eldest brothers. But the progeny born to them after them shall be yours. In other words, you may have more children. I'm not adopting. Right? They will not become tribes of Israel. They will be your children, and therefore they will be within your tribe. In this case, tribes. Because what's really happening here is that Joseph's sons will take his place. And that's striking because that means that Joseph gets a double portion in the land of Israel, right? If he has two sons that inherit equally with his brothers, then his portion, if one looks forward, has become doubled, like he was the firstborn. And so this has that significance as well. And then it says, I do this when I was returning from Padam Aram. Rachel died to my sorrow when I was journeying to the land, in the land of Canaan, when some distance short of Ephrath, and I buried her there on the road to Ephrath, now Benjamin. So if you look at the text in English, it says, I do this because. And that is, after all, an interpretation. That is not what is said in the text. The transition in the text is simply, it says, any children after them will be yours. They shall be recorded instead of their brothers in their inheritance. And then rather abruptly, when I was returning from Padam, Rachel died. So that's why the editor here wants to introduce the words, I do this because. It seems very abrupt. And this seems to be Jacob's way, if we read it that way, Jacob's way of saying almost apologetically to Joseph, we're talking about my burial place and the burial place of your ancestors. Understand that your mother was not buried, didn't get to be buried there. And therefore, you could say Jacob is now explaining the circumstances which led to her not being buried where he wants to be buried, even though she was Joseph's mother and clearly his favorite wife. So that is why it says, I do this because. I, however, don't buy it. I think, in fact, that this is an elderly man. He's nearing the end of his life. He's thinking about the past and the future. And he sees Joseph standing there with his grandchildren. And he remembers the love of his life. And in that moment, as he sees it, and he knows that Rachel isn't here. She isn't here to see this. I think this is a beautiful moment in many ways. It's really a tribute to the deep love that Jacob felt for Rachel. That this has never left his mind what happened. That he lost her, and in some ways that loss never goes away. And this scene with Joseph and his grandchildren, Joseph's children, brings it back to him for a moment. Anyway, Joseph noticing Joseph's sons, literally seeing Joseph's sons, he says, Mi Elah, who are these? Now, one way to explain this is that, like his father Isaac, his eyes have dimmed and he doesn't know who they are. He doesn't recognize who they are. That seems unlikely to me. I think what we're seeing here is a formula that when someone is now, he's going to adopt them as his children, and there's going to be a ritual. And the ritual begins, who are they before me? And Joseph says to his father, they are my sons who God has given me. And he says, bring them up to me. And he said that I may bless them. Now his eyes were dim and he could not see. So I still maintain what I said, even though his eyes are dim. So Joseph brought them close to him and he kissed them and embraced them. And he says, and this is another just so touching moment. Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see you again. And here God has let me see your children as well. I don't know about you. As a grandfather, this so resonates with me, this sense of gratitude for having lived long enough to see this. And Joseph then removed them from his knees and bowed low with his face to the ground. And Jacob took the two of them, Ephraim with his right hand to Israel's left, and Menasha with his left hand to Israel's right, and brought them close to him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, even though he was the younger, and his left hand on Menashe's head, crossing his hands, although Menashe was the first. Right? So he is, again, and the idea of, with all due deference to left-handed people, in the Torah, the right hand is the hand of power and recognition, right? Yamin Adonai Oseh Chayil, we see in the Song at the Sea. Your right hand, O God, has done valiant. Clearly, God doesn't have hands, right? But that sense of the right hand, the powerful one, the significant one, and the sense of the text here is it should go on the head of the firstborn. And that's the way Joseph set it up. But Jacob is having none of it, so he has to cross his hands. And this is the same theme that we have seen throughout the book of Genesis, of the younger one taking priority over the older. First, it was Isaac over Ishmael, then it was Jacob over Esau. But we'll see that there is a significant difference here. And he blessed Joseph, and he says, the God who walked in whose ways my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd from my birth to this day. Very nice image for Jacob, who had been a shepherd. Remember, he watched Laban's flocks, and now he refers to God as his shepherd. And this for us, of course, though it's a much, much later text, immediately makes us think of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's a pastoral image, very suited to Jacob. And he says, the angel who redeemed me from all harm, bless these lads. Right? And the Hebrew, Hamalach HaGoel Oti Mikol Ra, the angel who redeemed me, saved me from all evil, from every bad thing. May he bless these boys. This line, Hamelech HaGoel Oti, it became the basis for a beautiful modern song. And if you want to hear it, and I recommend it, it's quite powerful. You'll find it if you go on the internet and you search for Genesis 28:16 song, something like that, or the angel who redeemed me song, you'll get it. It's a Hebrew song, but it's a wonderful song. There's a version that I came across that's sung by the kids at Camp Ramah in California, which is, I think, particularly nice. But I would invite you to do that. And he says, them may my name be recalled, just as he recalls his fathers, Abraham and Isaac. Through them, may my name recalled, and may they be teeming multitudes on the earth, this blessing of, being fruitful and multiplying and becoming heads of many peoples. And Joseph saw that his father was placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, and he thought it wrong. He took hold of his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's hand to Menashe's. Not so, father, Joseph said to him, for the other is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head. But his father said, I know. He too will become a people, and he too shall be great. But his younger brother shall be greater than he. His offspring shall be plentiful enough for nations. So what we're seeing in this statement is something prophetic. And we're going to see in the shortly, as Jacob blesses his children, the blessing will have to do with what will happen to the tribe in the future. The sense here is that at the end of a person's life, they can somehow see beyond it. I don't know if you know the Dylan Thomas poem, do not go softly into that good night. Old age should burn and rage at close of day. It's a great song. It's a great poem if you don't know it. But there's a sense of this, not quite the same, but a sense of this in that poem also. So he talks about your eyes burning brightly as though you can see beyond. And of course, at the end of Exodus, we'll see Moses also has a vision beyond, as he's able to see the whole land of Israel, which he's not able to enter. So he says, predicting that the younger one will become greater than the older one. And he then says, by you, Israel will invoke blessing. So just as God said to Abraham at the beginning of this family saga, through you, the nations of the world will be blessed. Now he's talking about the descendants of Jacob specifically. And he says, by you, Israel, that is the people of Israel, will bless themselves, saying, God make you like Ephraim and Menasha. So this may be familiar to you. It is something
As soon as we get home, I gotta pee.
something that is traditionally done at the end of not as one celebrates Shabbat, Friday night, that there's a moment after Kiddush where parents bless their children. And the tradition is with male children to say, Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim and may God bless you like Ephraim and Menasha, taking this statement here and making it happen, that Israel will, Jews will bless their children this way. And then the blessing for daughters is, may you be like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. He says to Joseph, and notice that Ephraim is here before Menashe, as it is in the blessing. Israel said to Joseph, I'm about to die. God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your ancestors. And now I assign to you one portion more than your brothers, which I wrested from the Amorites. So the word for portion here is Shechem. I assign you one Shechem. It's not at all clear what that means. It's translated here as a portion. Shechem actually means a shoulder. I give you one shoulder, more than your brothers. So Robert Alter reads it as do others, as actually a statement of intent. That is to say, with singular intent, I have given you one more than your brothers. That is to say, because your two children will inherit equally with them. Another interpretation is that this is the name of a city. I give you, in addition, your descendants will get this extra city. I find Alter's translation the most compelling. The word is just, it's not used elsewhere. So it's extremely hard to know what it means. Okay, so in a moment, we will go on to Jacob blessing now his children. Before we do, I invite questions and comments if you have any. Sandy.
So, Rabbi, In the case of Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, we understood kind of why it was reversed, the order of the blessing. Is there any, I don't, with Ephraim and Menasha, is this the first time that Jacob met them, or why, is there any reason why he would reverse the
Yes,
order?
because as we'll see also with the blessing of the tribes, this is kind of prophetic. This is actually what happens. That is in the later history of the Jewish people. Ephraim grows much greater. Menashe becomes very small and distributed among the tribes. But I do want to say one other thing, and I'm glad you asked the question because it reminded me I wanted to say. In this passage, this idea of favoring one over the other comes to an end. We do have this prophecy that one will be greater than the other, but it is through both of them that the people of Israel will be blessed. That's a stark change, right? It was only going to be Isaac and not Ishmael. It was only going to be Jacob and not Esau. And here, for the first time, although we see something where the firstborn is put second, there is no sense that one is more important than the other. They equally inherit. It's just that down the road, things will be different. That's what will happen. Again, we have this idea of this prophetic vision at the end of his life. Any other questions? Harry?
Yeah, just getting back to Jacob's remembrance of Rachel.
Yeah.
So Jacob has children with 4 women, right? Rachel, Leah, and their maids or attendants. So he had only 2 children with Rachel.
Yes.
Right, Benjamin and Joseph.
Yes.
And so he made make reference to Rachel's death, so as to say he only had 2 children with Rachel. If he's dividing his possessions, the land, equally among the 4 women, you would expect 3, more like three portions per
Yeah, I think that's a good
wife.
I think that's a good point. I think that part of this is he's now doubled the number of shares.
But he's doubled the shares for Joseph, but he's kind of equalized the shares for Rachel.
Yes,
so maybe that's not to.
I think it's a good
counter it all with what you said as a lovely example of how he loves Rachel.
It's a really good point, and I think both make sense. Other comments? All right, we're going to move on, and now we are at chapter 49, and that's on page 298. And Joseph calls his sons together, and he says, "Come together that I may tell you what is to befall you in days to come." The Hebrew is Acharit Hayamim. One way to translate it is the end of days. Clearly here, it's not that. And what he's saying is, this is his prediction for what will happen to the tribes, to their descendants. Now, there are 2 parts to it. And the first part is less a prediction than it is an expression of displeasure. These are words I would not want to hear from my father on his deathbed, I can tell you, because he starts out and he starts with Reuven, who is his firstborn. It says, "Gather and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first fruit of my vigor, exceeding in rank and honor. Unstable as water, you shall excel no more. For you mounted your father's bed, you brought disgrace, my couch he mounted. The Hebrew is profaned, right? So this is, he slept with his father's concubine. We saw it earlier. He has forfeited that prerogative, the prerogatives of the firstborn. And now we go on to Shimon and Levi. More harsh words. Shimon and Levi are a pair. Their weapons are tools of lawlessness. Let not my person be included in their council. Let not my being be counted in their assembly. He is telling them he doesn't even want them to be part of who they are. For when angry, they slay men. When pleased, they maim oxen. Cursed be their anger so fierce and their wrath so relentless. I will divide them in Jacob, scatter them in Israel. So what they did was beyond the pale. We're, of course, remembering what they did when they went in, when Dinah was taken and raped, and they went in and they murdered all the inhabitants, men, women, and children of that town. And now we leave that behind and we get to Judah. You, Judah, your brothers will praise, your hand will be on the nape of your flock, your father's sons will bow to you. Judah is a lion's whelp. On prey, my son, you have grown. He crouches down like a lion, like a king of beasts who dares to rouse him. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. So the tribute will come to him, and homage of peoples will be his. So this is a prediction now of what will happen with the tribe of Judah, and we're thinking forward to the kingship, to David, to that tribe and its leadership. The scepter shall not depart from Jacob. And ultimately, we have this tradition that the Messiah will come through that line, the line of David. The tribute, the word tribute is Shiloh. The word is Shiloh. So it said, you could read it, until Shiloh comes, the homage of people will be his. And there are a variety of translations as to what Shiloh can mean. The word doesn't appear anywhere else. Is it talking about a messianic period, for example? And that's how Christians understand it. But Rashi, and this translation is following it, wants to divide the word Shiloh into two words. Perhaps it's a scribal error. Shiloh, meaning a tribute to him. And that's this translation. And again, more about Judah. He tethers his ass to a vine. His ass is foal to a choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, his robe in blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, his teeth are whiter than milk, right? So he gets lots of time here, and he will have it all. The language a little bit evokes the language of the Song of Songs. Now we get to Zvulun. We don't get much about him. He will dwell by the seashore. He shall be a haven for ships. His flank shall rest at Sidon. And Sidon exists to this day. And the territory of Zvulun is on the Mediterranean coast. It winds up being, and particularly the northern Mediterranean. And then we get Issachar, a strong-boned ass, crouching among the sheepfolds. When he saw how good was security and how pleasant the country, he bent his shoulder to the burden and became a toiling serf. I don't think the serf here means that he is subservient, but that he works the ground. And indeed, Issachar gets a very choice piece, a very fertile piece of land when the land is divided. Dan will govern his people. And the Hebrew is a bit of a play on words. Dan Yadin Amo. He will govern his people as one of the tribes of Israel. And the Hebrew is Ke'echad Shiftei Yisrael. This is the first time in the Bible we see the idea of the tribes of Israel, not just Jacob's sons, but each one will become a tribe. He will be a serpent by the road, a viper by the path, that bites on the horse's heels so that his rider is thrown backward. Dan is going to be a people, there's a sense here that, well, you can look at the note, actually. The image may allude to a form of guerrilla warfare to which the tribe of Dan was forced to resort in its struggle for survival against its neighbors during the period of settlement. I wait for your deliverance, O God. God, O Lord, God shall be raided by raiders, but he shall raid at their heels. Asher's bread will be rich. Royal dainties, and we go on to Naphtali. And I'm just going to jump ahead to archers assailed them, they shot him, they harried him, his arms were made firm by the hands of the mighty. They're shepherd of Israel, rock of Israel, the God of your father who helps you. God blesses you with heavens, the blessings of heaven above, and the deep crouches below. Blessings of the womb, the blessing of your father surpasses the blessings of my ancestors to the utmost bounds of the eternal hill. And here he's talking about, may they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the elect of his brothers. Now, here, when it refers to Joseph, of course, it is a reference to Ephraim and Menasha. Joseph disappears. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he consumes the foe. In the evening, he divides the spoil. And all of these were the tribes of Israel, 12 in number. So there's a problem, of course, because right now there are 13 tribes. Remember that Jacob had 12 sons. One of those sons Joseph becomes Ephraim and Menasha. One gets the sense, therefore, that the land should be split into 13 parts for the 13 tribes. But what happens is that the tribe of Levi doesn't get any land. They become the priests, and they will be scattered among all the tribes and will be the religious officiants among them. At any rate, 12 tribes, and this is what their father said to them as he bid farewell, addressing each a parting and appropriate word. And then he instructed them, I'm about to be gathered to my kin. Bury me with my fathers in the cave, which is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite. And we get a description, which is in the fields of Machpelah, facing Mamre, land of Canaan, the field that Abraham bought from Ephraim the Hittite. There Abraham and his wife were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. There I buried Leah, the field and the cave therein. And when Jacob finished his instructions to his son, he drew his feet into the bed and breathed his last. That's the deathbed scene. And we're moving quickly on to 50. So Joseph flings himself on his father's face, weeps over him, and kisses him. He orders the physicians in his service to embalm his father. In other words, he's being treated like an Egyptian. This is what they did. But remember that he is going to have to go on a long journey. And so embalming is perhaps for that as well. And the physicians embalmed him. It required 40 days for such is the full period of embalming. The Egyptians bewailed him for 70 days. That would include the 40. And when the wailing period was over, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's court, saying, now it's odd that he speaks to Pharaoh's court and not to Pharaoh himself. One speculation is he can't approach Pharaoh while he's a mourner, or perhaps he's become a little more distant from Pharaoh. Unclear. He said, "My father made me swear, I am about to die. Be sure to bury me in the grave which I have made ready for myself in the land of Canaan." Now, notice what Joseph says. He doesn't say, "Bury me in my ancestral holding." He says, "In the grave I have made ready for myself." And I think that's because he's speaking to Pharaoh. And in Egypt, graves are made ready for Pharaoh, right? They build pyramids, and they're built during the life of the Pharaoh, and ultimately, when he dies, he's entombed there. And so when Jacob speaks to Pharaoh, he's evoking a very familiar image. And Pharaoh says, "Go and bury your father because he has made you promise an oath." So we see that the oath actually, the need for the oath was quite real. And Joseph went to bury his father, and with him went all the officials of Pharaoh, the senior members of his court, all of Egypt's dignitaries, together with all of Joseph's household, his brothers, his flock, his father's household. Only the children and flocks and their herds were left in the region of Goshen. So on the one hand, we have this enormous honor guard. What could be greater, paying more tribute to Joseph and to Jacob than all the Egyptian officials going? But there's something else here, and I think that is the desire to make sure that Joseph comes back. Joseph is, we see here already, I think, the beginning of the fact that the people of Israel are trapped in Egypt. Pharaoh's not going to let them go. And we see what gets left, their children. Pharaoh later on, during the Exodus, also, "You can go, leave your kids here." Right? They are they're kind of hostages to be sure that they come back. So what happens? Chariots too, and horsemen went up with him, a very large troop. When they came to Goron HaAtad, which is beyond the Jordan, they held a very great and solemn lamentation, observe a mourning period of 7 days for his father. And when the Canaanites, inhabitants of the land, saw the mourning at Goron HaAtad, they said, "This is a solemn mourning on the part of the Egyptians, which is why it was named Abel Mitzrayim, which is the mourning of Egypt, which is beyond the Jordan." And thus his sons did for him as he had instructed them. His sons carried him to the land of Canaan, buried him in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which Abraham had bought for a burial site from Ephraim. After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all who had gone with him to bury his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrong that we did him?" Right? This is a little bit, like Esau, who said, "Once the mourning period for my father is over, I'm going to kill Jacob." Right? The brothers are afraid that Jacob would not take retribution against them, that Joseph would not take retribution against them while Jacob was still alive, but now maybe he would. So they said this message to Joseph. "Before his death, your father left this instruction. So you should say to Joseph, 'Forgive, I urge you, the offense and guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. Therefore, please forgive the offense of the servants of the God of your father.'" So they tell Joseph that this is what Jacob had said. There is no reason to believe this. There's no reason at all. This seems like a pure fabrication. And Joseph was in tears as they spoke to him. And my own thinking about this is that he realizes that it will never be over. The split between him and his brothers, their fear of him and retribution, even though he had told them when he first saw them, don't be afraid. It will never be. So his brothers go to him, fling themselves on before him. We are prepared to be your slaves. And Joseph says to them this. So again, we have the brothers bowing to him, just like in the dreams. Have no fear, am I a substitute for God? You intended me harm, but God intended me for good. So two things that he says. Again, he's reshaping the narrative. He says, don't be afraid. I don't wipe out what you did. You intended me harm, he said, but God intended it for good. And I'm not in place of God to judge you or to take vengeance on you. God did this to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. Fear not, I will sustain you and your children. He reassured them, speaking kindly to them. Right? So, by the way, there's a lovely midrash about when this takes place. According to the midrash, when Joseph is journeying back from Egypt, he stops at the pit that his brothers had thrown him into. He stays there. He looks into the pit. And his brothers think this is going to be it. He's remembering he's going to take his revenge. But the Midrash says he's looking into it and marveling at how far he's come from that moment, that place in the pit, and all that God has done for him. At any rate, he reassures them, Joseph and his father's household remain in Egypt. He lives to be 110 years, which, by the way, according to Egyptian records, according to the Torah, we get 120. In Egypt, they said 110. He lived to see children of the third generation of Ephraim, children of Machir, the son of Menasha, were also born on Joseph's knees. At length, Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die. God will surely take notice of you. Pakod yivkodethem will remember you, bring you out from this land to the land he promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he's saying, I'm going to die, and you're stuck here. We begin to see that already, in the book of Exodus, we're going to read a new Pharaoh came over Egypt who didn't know Joseph. But already things are not good. They can't leave. So Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, when God has taken notice of you, you will carry my bones from here. And he died at the age of 110. He was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. We've come to the end of the book of Genesis. And by the way, in the book of Exodus, they're going to dig up the coffin and they're going to take it with them, fulfilling this promise which was made generations earlier. Okay, I invite your questions and comments before I turn things over to Sandy. Anybody? Okay, Sandy. I can't hear you. You're muted.
The blessing that Jacob gives to Benjamin, who is like his second favorite, kind of strange, isn't it? Benjamin is a wolf that raveneth. In the morning he devoureth his prey, the prey, and at even he divideth the spoil. Is that kind of
Right.
not?
Yes.
I mean, you're surprised, expect something more favorable.
Yes. But remember, what he's doing is predicting the future of the tribe of Benjamin.
Oh,
He's not it's striking, right? Because the first two, right, for Judah and then for Shimon and Levi, he's talking about what they did, right? Less than he's talking about the future. But the rest of them are all, he's simply foretelling what the fortunes of their descendants will be. Anything else? Anyone else? Sandy, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, let's all give Rabbi Warmflash a standing ovation for his wonderful Genesis class.
Unnecessary. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Barry and Viola, who's sorry that she couldn't make it today, for contributing to the tribute that is from the class that Barry and I will now read.
But before you do, actually, I know you sent me a gift, which was and continues to be delicious, and I thank you. And it happened that my children were here from Texas this weekend, and they got to enjoy it too. And I enjoyed seeing them enjoy it. So thank you very much. And now, please.
Right. And of course, the gift is from your whole class.
I know
even people that have not come but have just listened to the recordings. That's how much you are loved and admired and respected. Okay, so now I'm going to share screen. Yes. And Barry will start when I have it set up. Just a second. Don't have it right yet. Had it right. Don't look at the screen yet. Okay. Okay. All right. Can everybody see it? Barry, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Just a second.
Before I read, I'd like to thank Sandy for this idea. Given the idea, I think the class was unanimous in thinking that it was a great idea.
Thank you.
Dear Rabbi Warmflash, as classmates have said, we are so grateful for the opportunity to be in Rabbi Warmflash's class. Paraphrasing Elizabeth Barrett Browning, how can we thank you? Let us count some of the ways. Our declaration of thanks to Rabbi Warmflash. When in the course of holy events it becomes necessary for Rabbi Warmflash's enlightening and insightful Bible class to dissolve for the summer, a decent respect to the values of Judaism requires that the class should declare the causes which impel them to be sorry at the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Let the record speak for itself. 1, you, Rabbi Warmflash, teach with insights and inspire us to learn more. You give information with fascinating anecdotes. 2, just like Abraham, you showed us warm hospitality by inviting us each Tuesday morning into your home to learn Torah.
And there you are. 3, you even took us virtually to Amsterdam to see Rembrandt's painting of Isaac and Rebecca. 4, what a heavenly course as we learned about angels and loving kindness many times. In fact, you, Rabbi Warmflash, on a hike with Beth, even acted as an angel when you gave directions to hikers. It's 5. It says in Pirkei Avot, Rabbi Shalafta ben Doza of Kfar Hananiah said, when 10 sit together and occupy themselves with Torah, the Shekinah, God's presence, abides among them. Thank you for bringing God's presence to us week after week. How blessed we have been. 6, measure for measure. Midah keneged midah. Using measure for measure, what goes around comes around, but in a positive way.
After all these things, for all you have done for us, Rabbi, by making the study of Torah sweet and giving us so much to ponder and chew on, in turn, we thank you with this declaration of thanks and with our gifts of sweet foods for you to chew on. Gratefully, your Tuesday Genesis class.
Wow. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. And I also appreciate the Declaration of Independence. Constitution would have been much too long. So that was very nice and very sweet and very appreciated. So next year, as I said, we'll begin right after the holidays. We'll be looking at biblical personalities. And I hope you'll be back for that. The time, whether it's 11 or 11:30, is still up in the air. I've heard from a bunch of people. I'd like to hear from a few more who attend regularly. I'll be reaching out to the ones that I haven't heard from. So far, I would say that there is not a strong view one way or the other. People have indicated something of a preference, but whatever way it goes, they say they're fine with it. So I'll just see if that carries out, and then I'll make a decision. So have a wonderful summer, a great holiday, Shavuot coming Sunday night. I hope it's a sweet holiday. We've studied a lot of Torah together, and it seems fitting that we end with a holiday that's all about Torah and the giving of the Torah. So have a wonderful summer, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
I hope to see you next year.
We look forward to it.